Welcome in Thursday night show. No Thursday night football this time. We are near the finish line of the regular season. So everybody's going to play this weekend. The NFL just dropped some news regarding the way that they're going to make up for the fact that the Bills and Bengals will not be rescheduled. That's going to be really interesting. Potentially some neutral site playoff games, including the the AFC Championship come the next few weeks. Also, if the Ravens and Bengals play in the wild card round, there's a chance that will be a neutral site game as well. But nothing affects the 49ers. There had been some speculation based on some of the ideas that the NFL was floating around about pushing back the playoffs, maybe adding an eighth team to the bracket on each side. That speculation had obviously involved a change of plans for the 49ers in the playoffs. But what it appears the NFL has settled on based on that statement today is only a change of plans for the AFC, and the 49ers' potential path to the Super Bowl remains the same as it was before all of these changes. And obviously, these changes have been made because of the Damar Hamlin incident. Good news on that front is that apparently he woke up today. He was not able to speak, according to reports, because he's still intubated for oxygen, but he was able to look around, see his family members, hold hands with his family members, and also write down a message on a piece of paper. And according to doctors, Damar Hamlin's first question, or one of his first questions, they didn't make it fully clear, was, did we win? And boy, that's just you can't even put words onto how awesome that, I mean, feels for everybody involved, right? Even people watching it, but for his family and the character of Damar Hamlin himself to be able to say that after the ordeal that he went through, for that to be the first question on his mind. Pretty cool stuff today. So we'll continue to keep him in our thoughts moving forward. That situation obviously is not yet fully resolved. He's still in the hospital, still in critical condition, but progress has been made. And that is obviously what everybody wants to hear as we progress toward the weekend, where the NFL is going to see games on both Saturday and Sunday. And today's video is about the 49ers quarterback, Brock Purdy. He has obviously taken the NFL by storm this season as Mr. Irrelevant, final pick of the 2022 NFL Draft. Has won several consecutive starts. Purdy actually has the highest passer rating out of any quarterback in the NFL ever since he took that 49ers starting job 4 games ago. He's 4-0 as a starter, 5-0 as the QB, playing the majority of the game because he obviously came in for the injured Jimmy Garoppolo against Miami, and the 49ers won that one. Aside from that NFL best QB rating of 112.4, Brock Purdy as a starter has seen the 49ers score at least 35 points in 3 of his first 4 starts, with the 4th start being the one that he was most injured for with that oblique injury against Seattle. The 49ers scored 21 that game, and Purdy had to have an injection before the game so that he would be able to operate. Had a tough time throwing further downfield during pre-game warm-ups. So it has been nothing short of sensational from Brock Purdy and his performance so far. And I wanted to take a show to talk about some of the really, some of the factoids that we've learned about his game, about his background, because it only gets cooler and cooler the more that you dig. It really does. This might be the story of the year as far as an emerging player in the National Football League. Because you think about it, a 7th round pick joining a Super Bowl contender, and not just any Super Bowl contender, one with a very storied quarterback tradition in the San Francisco 49ers, right? Brock Purdy's their 3rd starting quarterback this season. The NFL has set a record league-wide for how many different quarterbacks have started. 65 now. Purdy is one of those 65. The 49ers have had 3 of those 65. But the franchise of Montana, Young, you could go back to John Brody, Y.A. Tittle, move forward to guys like Jeff Garcia, Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick, Jimmy Garoppolo has obviously had success with the 49ers, taking them to a Super Bowl. A lot of good QBs throughout 49ers history. And when we consider that, the backdrop for Brock Purdy delivering for the 49ers, it is very, very impressive. So, this is the article that I wrote about Purdy after the game against the Raiders. I'm going to copy and paste the link and put it into the chat section for you because he came from some adversity against the Raiders to deliver what I thought was a spectacular finish. Oops, let that go off the screen. There you go. That's Purdy and Jordan Mason celebrating after Jordan Mason ran it in for his first career touchdown. 49ers rookie running back. And, you know, the ability to cut through adversity is one of the things that I'm going to talk about. One of the things that we've learned about Brock Purdy so far throughout these 5 games in his rookie season. And I think that was the lesson that we picked up this past weekend. We hadn't really seen true adversity for Brock Purdy until this past weekend. The 49ers were blowing everybody out. They blew, I mean, Miami, I guess, was a little bit closer, but that was the game where Purdy was just kind of thrown into the fire. You know, he didn't have the spotlight of being the starting quarterback on him yet. It was the next game against Tampa Bay where he faced Tom Brady, where everybody thought, okay, he's going to have to go toe-to-toe with Brady. This is going to be tough. Good Buccaneers defense. 49ers jumped out to what, a 35-0 lead? I mean, they were just blowing out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not much adversity there. Short week, moving to Seattle. I mean, I guess you could say the injury was adversity, but still the 49ers controlled the game. We didn't see any true in-game adversity for Brock Purdy. You had the Washington game. Again, the 49ers controlled the game. Brock Purdy was solid. You know, we might have seen a play here and a play there. I still remember the Tampa Bay game. The first play was the big sack, right? That Purdy didn't, you know, he changed up the play in a fashion that it should not have been changed up in. And because of that, Tampa Bay got the pressure home. So in ways like that, you could say, okay, yeah, he bounced back and he was fine. But for the first time in Purdy's NFL career in Las Vegas, he saw his team trail, and they trailed by 2 scores in the second half against the Raiders. Obviously, he came in with the 49ers down, I think, 7-3 against Miami, but that was still early in the game. 49ers were down 24-14 against Las Vegas. Road environment, I get it. They had a lot of fans there, but the Raiders fans were still loud. It was still a hostile environment for the 49ers offense. And Purdy had to bring the 49ers back from that. And Purdy also had to deliver a 2-minute drive at the end of the game. I think it was in the last minute 20, maybe minute 30. And he was absolute nails during that drive. I mean, he was making hand signals to change routes. That Brandon Ayuk took note of that. He's like, this guy, this rookie, he's making hand signals like he's Tom Brady with ice in his veins on the game-winning drive. It should have been the game-winning drive. Robbie Gould missed the kick. 49ers won anyway in overtime. But the way that Purdy bounced back from the deficit, and the 49ers in that deficit, he was not sharp, right? At that point of the third quarter, moving into the fourth quarter, Purdy missed about 4 straight passes, threw an interception on one that he should have led George Kittle, and then missed Juwan Jennings, just not great timing. The throw wasn't that off, but it wasn't great timing. And he missed George Kittle, another deep pass. There was another instance where he missed Tyler Kroft, threw to Brandon Ayuk instead. Should have been another touchdown for the 49ers. Didn't get it. But anyway, throughout all these misses that had kind of accumulated to put the 49ers in this inopportune spot, he was able to go back to the sideline and recenter himself with the help of 49ers quarterbacks coach Brian Griese, and then finish the game in the way that I just described with that awesome 2-minute drill that included a lot of passes to Brandon Ayuk. So, I mean, if we've learned anything really, really important about Brock Purdy, we picked it up in this Raiders game that I wrote about on that screenshot. But I'm going to go through a few things here for you about just kind of bullet points. What Brock Purdy has shown the 49ers so far about his game. And a lot of these are going to tie into the turnaround that I just described against the Raiders. Purdy takes coaching well. Brian Griese, I think, and Purdy have formed quite the duo in that quarterback room. When Purdy was off against the Raiders, just didn't have his rhythm, the first thing that he did was go to the sidelines and talk to Brian Griese. And Brian Griese was an intriguing 49ers hire, but we didn't know how he'd do as a quarterbacks coach because he had never held that position before. But now we see exactly why Kyle Shanahan wanted him. And initially, they obviously hired Brian Griese thinking that he was going to work primarily with Trey Lance. But just like Trey Lance, Brock Purdy is a young quarterback, and Kyle Shanahan wanted a liaison on his staff that A, knew the system, but B, could communicate to his quarterbacks as somebody who'd done it before. And Brian Griese was perfect for that because Brian Griese came into Denver. The Broncos drafted him when Mike Shanahan was the coach there in the late 1990s. And he was heir apparent to John Elway. So what happened this season? Well, the 49ers had two guys in front of Brock Purdy on the depth chart to begin the year, right? Trey Lance and then Jimmy Garoppolo. We didn't see much of Trey Lance. He got hurt in week 2, but Purdy was behind Garoppolo. Just kind of like Brian Griese at the start of his career was behind a veteran quarterback in John Elway. So Griese had to take the reins after Elway retired following Griese's first rookie season. So Griese became the starter in his second year. So the whole process of being behind a veteran quarterback, learning a Shanahan system, and then taking over and becoming the guy in that Shanahan system, that whole process, Brian Griese has walked that walk. So the lack of coaching experience entering this season, I think, has been more than made up for by Brian Griese's actual playing experience because it so perfectly mirrors the path that Brock Purdy has had to take in the Shanahan offense. So it's no surprise that in this game against the Raiders, put it back up on the screen, Brock Purdy was struggling. He went to the sideline. Brian Griese recentered him. And the fact that Brock Purdy takes coaching well is so vital because the coaching staff has been tailor-made to help these young quarterbacks, Brock Purdy and also Trey Lance. And the 49ers hope to see more of Trey Lance this offseason after he recovers from his second ankle cleanup procedure. It was to take, I think, a screw or some kind of device out of his ankle following the first surgery. Not a massive setback, but still something that has delayed Trey Lance's recovery process at least by a couple of weeks. Anyway, the 49ers have this entire coaching apparatus. It's headlined by Brian Griese, and it just so happens that Brock Purdy takes coaching well. All right, another point about Brock Purdy, and this is a huge one. Purdy is much quicker than anyone would expect based on his 40 time. He's a 4.9 40 guy, which is not slow by any stretch of the imagination for a QB, but it's not blazing fast either, especially when we have quarterbacks these days running under 4.5, right? But Purdy plays with the quickness of a 4.3 or 4.4 guy. And why is that? Well, it's because his 10-yard split, the 10-yard portion of the 40-yard dash, is a 1.55. Christian McCaffrey's 10-yard split was 1.55. A 1.55 10-yard split translates roughly to a 4.3 or 4.4 40-yard dash normally. This obviously isn't a normal situation. Somehow, some way, Purdy has elite short area quickness. His first 3 or 4 steps are awesome, but he isn't quite as fast over the 40-yard stretch. But the good news is he's not asked to be Usain Bolt. They don't need him just dashing down the field, racing people. Purdy needs to be fast and quick in relation to the pocket. So he needs to be able to get away with 2 or 3 steps from an edge rusher that's closing in on him or a defensive tackle like Aaron Donald who's bearing through the offensive line. He needs to be able to buy time in spurts. He doesn't need to have to run a 40-yard dash to beat other teams. And anybody who's watched Brock Purdy over the course of the past 5 weeks will recognize that this guy is shocking defenses with how quickly he can jet out of the pocket or take a step up. Remember the play against Tampa Bay where he took 2 steps backwards from the edge rusher and then fired downfield and hit Deebo Samuel? I mean, that was awesome stuff, and we've seen a lot of awesome stuff, even against the Raiders, spinning out of pressure in the end zone, throwing the ball away. Your average quarterback with the average 10-yard split time probably isn't getting away in some of those situations. So Purdy's a lot quicker than we would have thought. I've talked to him a little bit about this, and he says that's always just been an athletic trait of his. Dre Greenlaw is the locker right next to Brock Purdy's. And when I told Brock Purdy, your 10-yard split time was 1.55, Dre Greenlaw heard it, and his jaw dropped. Dre Greenlaw is like, what? Like 1.55? That should mean that you run a 4.3. And Dre Greenlaw's fast, too. There's legends, and they might be true, that Dre was the fastest player on Arkansas's defense back in 2018, his final college season, which is remarkable considering the fact that he's built like Mike Tyson in his prime, NFL linebacker. He's not built like a little DB. Anyway, Dre Greenlaw knows what speed looks like on a football field. He recognizes that Brock Purdy has it. The metrics tell us that Brock Purdy has speed in the form of quickness, and that's been really, really important to his game. Another thing, Brock Purdy has arm angle creativity. This is one, maybe I could pop open something on the screen if I find this video quickly enough. I was filming Purdy before the 49ers took on the Raiders at Allegiant Stadium. And I noticed something about the angle at which he was taking some of his warm-up throws that I hadn't noticed anywhere else because I was watching from behind the end zone. So I was behind Brock Purdy, and I could definitely see something that you don't see every day on TV. He was coming in and with a three-quarters release during some of these warm-ups. And there's so many videos up here. It's going to take me right here. I have some of this here. Hopefully we can get to the spot where, yep, this is going to be it. Sweet. All right, let's share this right now. Make it a little bit bigger. Here we go. And I'll play this. And in right here, watch Purdy's release here. It's lower than you think it will be. It's definitely lower than Josh Johnson's over there on the right. You'll see a few throws from Brock Purdy. He's definitely coming at that from a three-quarters angle. I could even try to pause it maybe on one of the release points here. We'll see if there's a little bit of a delay. Yeah, it's gonna be a little bit of delay. I gotta click a little bit sooner. But as I'm watching him spin this ball, I'm looking at the release and I'm like, that's something I don't see on the TV copy. Too much footwork, Brock, for this video. See, a little bit lower, a little three-quarters, spins that ball out of there. And the more I watch Brock Purdy in actual games now, the more I appreciate how he's able to make adjustments midstream with his release point, with his timing to get the ball past taller defensive linemen. Remember, the only reason, in my opinion, that Brock Purdy was picked in the 7th round and not much earlier in the draft is because he isn't overly tall. He's not your 6'2", 6'3" gunslinger. I think he's listed at 6'1". I don't think he's 6'1". I think he's a little bit shorter than that. But I think that there were concerns about Purdy's height and the ability to A, see over the crowd of the pocket, and also B, get the throw through some of those defensive linemen. If you have height, you can often go over the defensive lineman. A couple extra inches could mean a big deal. But if you don't, then you have to be a lot more creative. And Purdy's arm angle creativity, and we saw a little bit of an example there, has been really, really, really important to him because he actually has showcased that he knows how to apply it. If you've noticed his past two starts, Purdy has had a couple passes batted down early, but then he has nothing batted down as the game continues. And that shows you that he's made adjustments. It's not just luck to have a pass not batted down. You have to account for where defensive linemen are going to be in that chess match, where they're throwing their arm out, how deep they are. And Purdy has successfully adapted to the mistakes that he's made early in games to have his passes batted down to be able to take care of those issues later on. And to that arm angle stuff, I have to tell you that Brock Purdy was a second baseman and a shortstop back when he played baseball in high school. And beyond that, this is one of the wildest factoids that isn't really out there yet. Check this out. Brock Purdy's dad, Sean Purdy, played in the San Francisco Giants organization. He was a minor league pitcher in the San Francisco Giants organization. So San Francisco 49ers quarterback, his dad played for the San Francisco Giants organization. From 1995 to 1997, Sean Purdy made it all the way up to AAA. Phoenix was the 49ers AAA affiliate in 1997. So that means that Sean Purdy was one phone call away, one promotion away from making the big leagues, being with the San Francisco Giants, and being teammates with somebody like Barry Bonds, who obviously was with the Giants in 1997. That was actually the year that the Giants went worst to first and beat the Dodgers for the National League West pennant. I went and I looked up Sean Purdy's minor league stats, and I'll put them on the screen for you right here. we have Baseball Reference handy at our disposal, and you could see these 3 years, 1995, 1996, 1997, Sean Purdy was with the Giants organization. Prior to that, he had been with the California Angels. After that, he did a year before retirement with the Atlanta Braves system. Never made it past AAA, unfortunately. But in his 3 seasons with the Giants, Sean Purdy was a winner. His record was 21-10 as a pitcher. And in 2 of the seasons, his ERA was under 4, 3.75, 3.10, and then ERA of 4.37 in AAA Phoenix, his 1997 season. Never got the call from the Giants. What a story that would have been. But I still think it's a good story. I still think it's something that we can look at and be like, wow, there's a reason that Brock Purdy is able to control his arm so well. It's because dad was a professional pitcher. It's hard to make it up to AAA baseball, but dad was a professional pitcher, and Brock Purdy played high school baseball as a second baseman and as a shortstop, and obviously arm angles are a big part of that deal there. And I think that his creative arm angles have been able to translate to quarterbacking at the NFL level. Now, of course, on top of arm angle creativity, you have to be coachable. And I talked about how coachable Brock Purdy is a little bit earlier. I'll tie that back in right now. He's been able to take what coaches have told him. Hey, you missed this guy. Hey, it's better to get this throw around a defensive end instead of trying to get it over him. He's able to take that critique and apply his physical skill set, which definitely is unique to be able to make it work. Now, you want to talk about, potential negatives that we might have learned about Brock Purdy so far? He can be erratic on those throws further downfield. He doesn't have the strongest arm. Do I think that his arm is good enough to succeed at the NFL level? Well, I think it's been proven that his arm is good enough to succeed at the NFL level. He's played several games with the arm that he has. He can make the deep out throws. That's the one that you absolutely have to be able to make so that the defense can be able to take the whole field. I will say that Brock Purdy is quicker than Jimmy Garoppolo. Obviously, he's got, has more foot speed, is able to be more escapable. He doesn't have a better arm than Jimmy Garoppolo, though. Garoppolo had a good arm. Garoppolo has a good arm. He's still playing for the 49ers. He's just hurt right now. But Brock Purdy has an arm that, you saw some of the limitations against the Raiders. Let's put it this way. The average depth of target for Purdy is actually shorter than it was with Jimmy Garoppolo. And Garoppolo, that's the offense, right? Especially with Garoppolo and Purdy, the offense has been short passes to set up yards after the catch because that's what the 49ers receivers are good at. But the 49ers have gone even more extremely. They've trended even more extremely toward the short range yak attack with Purdy than they did with Garoppolo. There have been a few where he's uncorked it a little bit further downfield. I remember remembering Christian McCaffrey against the Buccaneers, then against Washington. I remember Purdy throwing to George Kittle. I remember Kittle stealing the ball from Ray McLeod. There's plays like that, of course. But on the aggregate, the passes have been shorter and closer to the line of scrimmage for Brock Purdy. And there's nothing wrong with it because he's good at setting up some of that yak. But when we look at the, need to air it out a little bit further on a more consistent basis, and I don't know if that's going to arise this year or when it might arise, there have been some erratic moments for Brock Purdy. And one of those came against the Raiders when he had George Kittle open. Now, it's interesting because Purdy said that he intentionally left the ball short to George Kittle because he just didn't see the backside cornerback, and he wanted to go for a safe throw. And then the backside cornerback was able to come in and break the pass up. He should have obviously led George Kittle, and it wasn't a breakup. It was an interception on the play. To avoid that, Purdy should have led George Kittle. Would have been a touchdown. It's all water under the bridge now. But as Purdy's career progresses, as defenses test him in different ways, that might be a throw that defenses leave on the table. They might say, hey, can he beat us consistently on a leading ball like that? Can he put that ball out in front of George Kittle even when he's rolling the other way? It's a tough throw to make for any quarterback. That's something that Brock Purdy's going to have to show because the book on Brock Purdy right now, I think, is simple, and I think it matches most of his scouting report coming out of Iowa State, and that is he's highly experienced. He's smart. He knows where to go with the football. We've learned that he's quick, but the arm is maybe a little bit weaker than average. I don't know, what average is, where that scale is. But as far as throws a little bit further downfield, where exactly is he? And to me, it's still a question mark. We saw some erratic throws against the Raiders, right? It wasn't just that one to Kittle. There was one to Jennings, and there was one a little bit later to George Kittle. It was all in that one stretch. But we've also seen some really good throws downfield. So it's hit or miss so far. And that's what's exciting about Purdy as this sample gets a little bit bigger. We're going to get to see exactly who this guy is as a quarterback. And the 49ers hope that with more time will come more confidence, will come better performance on some of these longer throws, like the one that he was trying to hit to George Kittle down the stretch of the game against the Raiders. But that's what the 49ers have learned about Brock Purdy. And now I'm going to learn something about your questions. I'm going to hop into the comment section and see what everybody's talking about here. So I have not been catching up to the comment section at all. So apologies if I miss your message. There are a lot of questions in there right now. Anyway, I hope everybody's having a good Thursday night. Nice to see a big crowd on here. And it's still growing. The San Francisco Giants factoid about Brock Purdy, I mean, really just blew my mind. He said that his dad, Sean, who played in the Giants organization from 95 to 97, still has a lot of contacts from within the organization. Guys who actually ended up playing with him in the minors, AA Shreveport and AAA Phoenix at the time before the Fresno Grizzlies were founded. That became the Giants' next AAA affiliate before they moved it up to Sacramento with the River Cats. But supposedly some of Sean Purdy's teammates made it up to the big leagues. So I'm going to look up to see who was on some of those teams, namely the 1997 Phoenix. Was it the Firebirds? I wonder who was on that 1997 Phoenix team. Maybe if I click right here, it will pop up right away. That would be amazing. Yes, the 1997 Phoenix Firebirds. Okay, you baseball fans are going to love this. Players on the 1997 Phoenix Firebirds. Rich Aurelia. He obviously famous. So Sean Purdy was teammates with Rich Aurelia. Marvin Bernard, he made it up. Bobby Bonds. So Barry Bonds' younger brother was on that team, but he only played one game. Going through some of these other names. Wilson Delgado was teammates with Brock Purdy's dad. Osvaldo Fernandez played for the Giants later on. Keith Folk. Keith Folk was a closer, I believe, for the A's later on. He was actually on that AAA team on the same pitching staff as Brock Purdy's dad. Doug Mirabelli, catcher for the Giants, ultimately. Russ Ortiz was on that team. Wow. So Russ Ortiz is a prospect in 1997, was Sean Purdy's teammate of the Giants. Russ Ortiz, of course, I mean, it's infamous. Dusty Baker gave him the game ball in 2002, Game 6 of the World Series at Anaheim. But man, the Sporting and Dante Powell, I remember him too. Sean Purdy was on that pitching staff. I still have a few more here that I can go through. Let's see. I'm just looking for names that I recognize. 4 or 5 of them. I remember Steve Soderstrom. I think he made it to the big leagues for the Giants. William Van Landingham. He made it to the big leagues for the Giants. He was teammates with Sean Purdy. That is awesome. What a crossover. I mean, anybody who followed Giants baseball in the 1990s, you're smiling right now. You've heard of these names. You've heard of William Van Landingham. So just think, the San Francisco 49ers starting quarterback right now, his dad was teammates with those guys in AAA baseball. And that's just AAA. I could probably go back to the 2 years in AA Shreveport and we'll find other teammates for Sean Purdy. This is crazy. I can't wait to delve a little bit deeper into this. I feel that I just hit a gold mine with some of this information today. All right. Sorry, got distracted. Now we're going to go to your questions. Questions. Any questions about Brock Purdy? Go for it. I don't want to answer. Thank you, Gammon Brown, for your question. I don't want to answer anything about myself. I'm talking about Brock Purdy right now, but I do appreciate it. Godzilla asks, what are the chances that Garoppolo's a start in the Super Bowl due to injury, bad play, organically? Well, injury, bad play, all that is organic. So I don't know. Like I don't put chances on this stuff because it's long been an organic type of situation. The better that Purdy plays, the more it gets pushed into the organic column, right? And injuries are always a possibility. It's an unfortunate reality of the game. And I hate to put odds on something like that. So let's just sit back and say that quarterback depth is what you want to have as an NFL team. And the 49ers, if they can get Garoppolo back active, will have it. Assuming the 49ers beat Arizona, is it bad the 49ers are on a 10-game winning streak heading to the playoffs? Since 2000, only 6 teams, only one made it to the Super Bowl. I think you're saying only 6 teams have done it with a 10-game win streak. Well, let me tell you who had a 10-game win streak and then won the Super Bowl. And that was the last 49ers team to win a Super Bowl, the 1994 team. They won 10 in a row. Then they lost week 17 because they rested their starters, I believe, against Minnesota. And then they went on a tear and won the Super Bowl. So, no, you'd rather have a 10-game win streak than not have a 10-game win streak. That is predictive. If you're able to win 10 games in a row, it's predictive of your potential ability to continue winning as the season progresses. So, I wouldn't worry about the 49ers being on a 10-game win streak. You know what was really cool? They got exposed a little bit on defense by the Raiders. I think that was enough of a wake-up call for them. I mean, you'd rather have that wake-up call happen in a win than a loss. You have somebody nervous about Purdy not having a loss. Well, I mean, should make you happy that he hasn't lost, right? I'm sure that if he had lost, you'd be nervous about the reasons that led to the loss repeating themselves. So it's better to have a guy that just wins. I mentioned that his dad won a lot too, 21-10 in the Giants farm system as a pitcher. So just a family of winners, it seems like. I don't know where Garoppolo and I don't know where Garoppolo and Purdy would be without Brian Greasy, but I do think that Brian Greasy has truly benefited the 49ers this year. I mean, and it's not just Greasy, it is the entire delegation of quarterback coaches that they have in there. Obviously, Greasy's the only one with that title, but you have the assistant QB coach and Clay Kubiak, Bobby Slowick, the pass game coordinator. Anthony Lynn is on this staff. Kyle Shanahan is obviously on this staff. I mean, all of these guys are helping the cause. And it was a team that was built primarily with Trey Lance in mind, but Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy have both certainly benefited. Do I think that Jalen Hurts can lead the Eagles to a Super Bowl and win? Well, if Jalen Hurts is healthy, then the Eagles certainly have a much better chance than if he's not healthy. And, they might be downplaying this shoulder situation. If that's an actual separated shoulder, as has been speculated, that takes a long time to heal. I mean, a quarterback has to throw the football, right? So I think the Eagles right now are in a little bit of trouble. It's hard to see them losing against the Giants because the Giants are probably going to rest some of their starters this weekend. But I mean, outside of that, the Eagles, fine, they win, they get the bye. What if they have to play the Cowboys in the second round, divisional round, right? What if Hurts is either not healthy enough to play yet, or B, playing compromised? Dallas just beat this team. Dallas has got a defense that's explosive, it come around the edge with Micah Parsons, and they obviously have an offense that's capable. You know, Dallas was favored against Philadelphia a couple weeks ago, and then they ended up beating them when Gardner Minshew was starting. So I find it to be a perilous path for Philadelphia to even reach the NFC title game if Jalen Hurts is not 100%. And I don't know if he has the same shoulder sprain as Jimmy Garoppolo did last year, but it is a useful reference point, right? Because when Garoppolo hurt his shoulder, he wasn't the same after. And then remember that Jimmy Garoppolo did not naturally heal after the season. He had to have surgery around the time of the NFL Combine, which isn't until late February, early March. So he gave it an entire month to see if normal rehab would take. It didn't. Then Garoppolo had to have the surgery. That surgery ended up being a great break for the 49ers. They didn't think so at the time, but that's what ended up happening. And when all was said and done, he was back with the 49ers all healed. But remember, it was a process to get back from the shoulder injury last year for Jimmy Garoppolo. And that's absolutely something that we should keep in mind if we're evaluating the potential status of Jalen Hurts. What's it like being on the Pat McAfee show? It's a good one. I thought, I've been on a few times now. I think it's really cool. Those guys are so good at making you feel welcome when you come aboard. I mean, they have such good energy. They're all rah rah clapping. A lot of fun. I know Pat McAfee and his wife are expecting a baby. I think he just announced that the other day. So congratulations to them. But yeah, just a bunch of good dudes on the show, and it's a lot of fun to come on that show. The acquisition of Christian McCaffrey should go down as, sorry, I just missed your message right here. The best in-season trade in NFL history if the 49ers win the Super Bowl. Maybe. I mean, it's been awesome. They're 9-0 ever since McCaffrey joined the starting lineup. Yeah, I mean, I think this goes without saying. I think that the thing is Garoppolo probably won't be 100%, which makes this decision for the 49ers easy. If he's 80% and active, if he's healthy enough to be active, then he's Brock Purdy's backup, right? And then you have option power. Then if Purdy struggles, then if Jimmy gets healthier and Purdy gets a little bit hurt and he's not going to be at full efficiency, then you got two of these guys. Kind of like in the running back room, you have Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey and maybe even Deebo Samuel and Jordan Mason. What's wrong with having a lot of depth in the quarterback room? So again, my take on the QB room is just let it play out organically. If you let it play out organically, you can't lose, right? Unless you lose both the QBs, which 49ers came close to having happen that Seattle week, right? When Purdy had to play hurt against the Seahawks. Garoppolo to the Raiders? I don't know. That'd be something, wouldn't it? I did read today that if the Tennessee Titans beat the Jacksonville Jaguars this weekend, then the 49ers' 17th game of the 2023 season would be in Nashville next year, by the way. I know that's kind of unrelated, but thought some of you might like to know that just for the scheduling purposes next year. Normally, you only go play an AFC team at their place once every 8 years, but the 17th game this season, or the past couple seasons now, has changed that. You can go play another interconference game, and you will play another interconference game, and half the time it is going to be on the road. I don't see anybody replacing Diamond or Lenore, at least right now. Actually, we asked D'Amico Ryans about Lenore today, and Ryans today was highly critical of Talanoa Hufanga of the pass rush. He was saying that they weren't using disciplined eyes, and he was, I have actually hadn't heard D'Amico Ryans be so publicly critical of his players. But when he was asked about Diamond or Lenore, he was actually really complimentary, and he said, he's a young guy, and he's just going to keep on getting better, and I'm happy with his progress. So to me, reading the tea leaves between that and Kyle Shanahan talking about not wanting to make a corner change because he thinks both cornerback positions are set with Charvarius Ward and Diamondor Lenore. I think that the 49ers are staying the course of that position, and they have depth with Jackrabbit Jenkins and Ambry Thomas. And it's not as much Hufanga's coverage; it's his eyes. You want Talanoa Hufanga not biting on the play fakes. He's got to keep his eyes disciplined because the actual mechanics of coverage, I think he's fine. It's when he takes a couple steps in the wrong direction, he gets frozen by the play fake that it starts to hurt. I know that those are two related things, but I think it is important to delineate between them. Yeah, he had some words for Hufanga, that's for sure, today in the press conference. Kittle and I are about the same height, by the way, somebody just asked. This is a good question. So if you're pursuing a degree in digital marketing, go ahead and tweet at me. Let me know what your Twitter handle is. Go ahead and tweet at me, and I'll find you and I can help you out. I'll send you a message. So let me know what your Twitter handle is here, and I'll look for your tweet. Any chance that we see a significant drop in the starters getting snaps in this last game? Yeah, I think that it's going to depend on some scoreboard watching. Kyle Shanahan might do some of that. If Minnesota loses, or if Minnesota wins and the 49ers are blowing out the Cardinals, and it appears that there's no chance to get the 1 seed because the Eagles are blowing out the Giants, maybe down the stretch of this game, Kyle Shanahan replaces some of his most key players with backups. He can't replace all of them because NFL rosters are small, but that would be the only scenario. Right now, the 49ers don't want to give up the 2 seed. I talked to a lot of guys in the locker room this year. The 2 seed is very important to them. They don't think like fans. Fans are all afraid of Green Bay for some reason. 49ers are not thinking like fans. They are thinking, we want the 2 seed so we can minimize travel, because the 49ers know that they have a damn good team, and they know that traveling is one thing that can exhaust and derail them, as it did last year. They're not afraid of the Packers like people on Twitter are. So the 49ers want to secure the 2 seed. They do that by winning. Minnesota plays Chicago in the morning. There's a chance Chicago beats Minnesota. That would make the 2 seed locked up for the 49ers, right? But I don't think the 49ers expect the Bears with Nathan Peterman to beat the Vikings. So they're probably going to have to win the afternoon game. And then the bonus potentially of winning the afternoon game would be grabbing that 1 seed if the Giants are able to upset the Eagles, but that also seems unlikely. Yeah, I think that Emmanuel Mosley will be active for OTAs. I mean, he tore his ACL about midway through, a little bit before that of this 2000, week 5. So he should be active. OTAs. Wait, I thought you meant for next season. OTAs might be tough. These ACLs, they could be anywhere between 6 and 9 months. So if he tore the ACL in October, 6 months would be, yeah, if he was on the very quicker end of the recovery spectrum, it'd be like April or May, and that's when OTAs is. So I don't think so. I would actually say no to that. I think they're going to try to slow play it a little bit more. No rush to be ready for OTAs. John thinks the Lions will beat the Packers, but I'm pretty sure the Packers are favored in that game. It's 3 teams for the final spot in the NFC: the Lions, the Packers, and the Seahawks. The only team with a clear path right now is the Packers. If they win, they're in. If the Seahawks win, they need the Lions to win as well to knock the Packers out. And if the Lions beat the Packers, they need the Seahawks to lose to the Rams to knock the Seahawks out. So the only team with an absolutely clear path amongst those 3 is the Packers, and that makes the Packers the 49ers' most likely first-round opponent at this time. Reading through some questions. Somebody surprised the Packers are favored? Yeah, I would think they're favored. They're at home against the Lions, and they're playing well. Like, somebody look up the spread for me. I'm not going to do it right now, but I'm almost certain the Packers would be favored at home. Aaron Rodgers against Jared. I don't care how good Jared Goff's been this year. With a winner takes all kind of game at Lambeau at night, January, dome team. I mean, the Lions have been so much better at home than they have been on the road. The Packers, who are on a roll, yep, here they are. They're favored by 4.5. No way that they're not going to be favored for this game. You want the 49ers to pitch count Bosa? Well, I mean, first they're going to try to win the game because I think they're going to need to. Now, if Minnesota doesn't win, maybe the 49ers think about it, but I really don't think so, because they still need to see how the start of the game goes with the Giants and the Eagles. Maybe the Eagles completely crap the bed, right? So that would be one of those situations where maybe you let a few possessions of that game play out, have somebody upstairs let Shanahan know, and then you could start thinking about resting some guys or whatever if you have nothing to gain over this Cardinals game. But I think that's the only scenario in which something like that would happen. Yeah, I think Garoppolo will have. I mean, there's tons of quarterback openings potentially in the league, so it does seem that there will be opportunities. I think Garoppolo wants to get back out there this year somehow, some way to negate some of those concerns. Right, there are concerns from other teams. This guy's getting hurt a lot, so it would make him more valuable in a potential free agent market if he did showcase some more healthy football in the playoffs to end this season. But I mean, there's it's going to be organic. Let's let it play out organically. Let's see how this January and then beyond plays out, because a lot can still happen that's going to surprise people. Got 800 people in here, so I'm going to go back really quickly to what we were talking about with Brock Purdy. What the 49ers have learned about Brock Purdy. A, he takes coaching well. We saw him take Brian Greasy's coaching against the Raiders after he missed a few straight passes. Greasy said, "Hey, you've done this in practice. Different situation. I get it. You're behind this time. You're working back from a deficit, but you just have to execute. Sit back, do your job, execute." And Purdy took that really well, rebounded against the Raiders. He talked today in his press conference about saying, "I love when Kyle Shanahan comes up to me and says, 'You missed this, you missed that.' I take that criticism and I apply it." Purdy's much quicker than anybody would expect based on his 40 time of 4.9. He's got a 1.55 10-yard split, and it shows up on tape. We saw it against Tampa Bay. That was a backwards 10-yard split. 2 steps backwards, hits Deebo Samuel downfield. The way that Brock Purdy can step up in the pocket, bail the pocket, he's got elite quickness. He doesn't have elite speed, but he definitely has elite quickness. And he also has arm angle creativity. This one's big. And I think it comes from his dad, who played 3 seasons in the San Francisco Giants organization up to AAA. His dad was nearly a teammate of Barry Bonds. One phone call away. Didn't get it, though. Finally, I talk about Purdy's coachability. That's how he can apply some of that arm angle creativity. He can be a little erratic on the deeper passes, though. So you have a smart quarterback. I should add that I think Purdy's a short-range gunslinger, just like Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe I should add that right now. But he can be a little bit erratic on those throws downfield. And that's something that we're going to have to see a larger sample of to be sure of our evaluation. But it's definitely something I think that Brock Purdy can work on. And, here we go. Let me move the mic a little bit. I'm typing right now. Brock Purdy is a short-range gunslinger, which is like the quarterback who preceded him, Jimmy Garoppolo. Short-range gunslingers are rare, and this is, a lot of people had their Garoppolo evals all wrong. They're like, "Oh, he's a game manager." It's like, well, no, he's not. A game manager would never be able to put up the efficiency numbers that Jimmy Garoppolo did. A game manager would never be able to put up the efficiency numbers that Brock Purdy is putting up. But then people say, well, he's not throwing that far downfield on average. And, then you say yes, but that's not the only way to rack up yardage and rack up points. You could also throw short and set up yards after the catch. But at a certain level, if you want to truly blow the top off of the efficiency metrics, you can't only be throwing the easy passes short, right? You also have to take some chances, especially in condensed areas of the field. And both Garoppolo and Brock Purdy do a lot of this. Garoppolo had an above average interception rate in every single season except for this one, because he did try to force a lot of footballs into tight windows over the middle of the field. It was a boom or bust kind of thing. If that pass fit through, oh, great. Sometimes the throw to Deebo Samuel for the touchdown against the Rams, Monday Night Football last year. Remember that Deebo throw on the crosser? You watch that from the end zone angle. That's a high-risk throw. There's defenders crisscrossing everywhere. but the high reward paid off for the 49ers, hits him in stride. The throw avoids the defenders, and Deebo Samuel takes off to the end zone. So Purdy has a lot of that too, where he's trying to fit the ball into small windows over the middle of the field, and that's what I call a short-range gunslinger. Now, the key to any short-range gunslinger's success is being able to avoid the negatives. Generally, there are always going to be some negatives, some interceptions. Be able to pick your spots so you're maximizing the efficient, positively efficient plays and avoiding the negatively efficient ones like the interceptions. It's something that took Garoppolo several seasons to figure out. Finally started figuring it out this year, then he broke his foot. Purdy takes the torch. Purdy, I think he's gotten away with a couple interceptions. We'll see if he continues getting away with a couple when the playoffs come around. But so far, I see stylistic similarities in that regard between Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo. All right, I'm about to call it. I'm going to answer a couple more questions, and then we will get going. Any questions, guys? Marco, do you think this is the best offense the 49ers have had on paper in the last 20 years? Well, I mean, do you mean on paper by just the collection of talent, or do you mean on paper statistically? Because the way that they're playing right now, yes, they're better than 2012, which was the best offense of the Harbaugh era, the 2012 offense. So when Kaepernick was on his best part of his tear. Then you go back to the Jeff Garcia era. I'd have to measure some of those. Those were good offenses by DVOA. But this offense that we've seen in the back half of this season under both Garoppolo and then Purdy, I think does take that cake for the 49ers. This offseason is going to be crazy. You are right. Kenny Hamilton, best offense since they had T.O., which obviously would have been the Jeff Garcia era. All right, guys. Time for me to call it. We've been on for 52 minutes. So your instructions are simple. Subscribe to The Athletic. Follow me on Twitter. We got a lot of cool pieces up on The Athletic recently. Another one coming out tomorrow. So be sure to stay tuned for that. If you want to take a look at my homepage there, it's this one right here. I'm going to copy and paste this and put it into the chat section, but you could see all the Purdy, McGlinchey, George Kittle, Nick Bosa. Everybody's on there. Charvarius Ward. Man, there's a lot of in-depth 49ers pieces on there. So make sure to subscribe to The Athletic. I'm going to go ahead and share this link to my homepage in the comments section. Maybe you still get a good deal. I think we were doing $1 a month for that in the New York Times. But it is the furthest in-depth into the 49ers that you'll get. So everybody, thanks for joining. Have a good night. Hope you enjoyed this show about Brock Purdy and what we've learned so far, including the fact that his dad played in the San Francisco Giants organization and was so close to being teammates with Barry Bonds. That's some cool stuff. All right, everybody have a good night. Take care.